be 4 p.m. We are coming to you from PS 94 in Sunset Park. I would like to ask everyone here to please sign the attendance sheet at the back of the room. And in the chat, if you are here on Zoom, please sign the attendance sheet that will be placed in the chat. Before we call the roll, I would like to invite the interpreters to introduce themselves. I'll please call the Bangla interpreter first to introduce themselves.
শুভ সন্ধ্যা উপস্থিত বাংলাভাষী অভিভাবক বৃন্দ, আজকের এই অনুষ্ঠানে জনাব আওয়াল জামান এবং আমি ওটিন দেওয়ান, আমরা দুজন এখানে আছি দোভাষী হিসেবে। আর আপনারা যদি বাংলা রুমে প্রবেশ করতে চান তবে ডায়াল করুন 347-966-4114। আমি আবার বলছি, এটা 347-966-4114 এবং আইডি চাওয়া মাত্রই আপনারা ডায়াল করুন 256-218-290 এবং সাথে একটা পাউন্ড সাইন। আপনাদের সাথে আপনারা এই বাংলা রুম থেকে আমাদের সাথে আপনারা যোগাযোগ রক্ষা করতে পারবেন। ধন্যবাদ। থ্যাংক ইউ।
Thank you. And now I would like to call the Mandarin interpreters to introduce themselves.
Good evening, everyone. We are the Mandarin interpreter Siu Tong and Max Chan. 各位家长下午好。若你需要国语翻译的，请拨打专线电话347-966-4114，密码 ID 是313-869-045，输入后请按井字。我会将电话号码和密码 ID 放在聊天室这里，在你们的右下角。OK, thank you.
Thank you. And now I would like to call on the Spanish interpreters.
Good evening. This message is going to be in Spanish, offering interpretation services. Buenas noches, bienvenidos. Para escuchar esta reunión en español, por favor, marque su teléfono, el número 347-966-4114 e ingrese el código de conferencia o número PIN 267-437-14, símbolo numeral. Una vez más, para escuchar esta reunión en español, por favor, marque desde su teléfono el número 347-966-4114 e ingrese el código de conferencia 267-437-14, símbolo numeral. Mi compañera y yo, Marisela, estaremos agradecidos de ustedes si de repente ponen, por favor, sus dispositivos en silencio para evitar sonido de fondo y así poder brindar una mejor interpretación. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And now I'll pass it to Antonia Ferraro to call the roll.
Okay. Council member Antonia Ferraro is in attendance, and Tia Shelsteed is not here. Vincent Liu, are you here?
Present.
Nana Poku Ajakum. Alfred DeAngelis. Not here. Joseph Alexander.
Present.
Okay. Ivan Banda.
Present.
Nancy Randall.
Here.
Vanessa Gonzalez Uoka is not here. And Nakia Muhasa Brown is not.
She's in heavy traffic.
She's maybe coming later.
That's on.
Okay.
Let's move on to all of the public, the introduction to CEC 15 and the protocol and student.
Okay, all right. We also have our minutes.
Yes.
So let's vote on the minutes for March 28th calendar meeting. Vincent, I made the changes that you requested to those minutes. So I'll just give you all a moment to look them over and ask any questions or make any comments. I am going to make a motion to approve these minutes. Does anyone object to approving the March minutes? Okay, there are no objections. The minutes for March 28th are approved. Shall I read the introduction? Okay. So thank you all for coming to the District 15 Community Education Council meeting tonight. We appreciate your time and we're glad that you could join us. For those of you who are new to CEC meetings, there are 32 CECs throughout the city, plus 4 citywide councils. Each CEC represents a community school district, and each is made up of 11 volunteer members, 9 of whom are elected by parents in the district. The remaining members are appointed by the Brooklyn Borough President, and we have 1 high school student member. CEC 15 is a state mandated public body responsible for ensuring that public school parents and the public have input in educational decisions that are made at the school district level. Our council reviews education policies and advocates for high quality education that benefit all of our District 15 public elementary and middle school students. CEC 15 serves 35 elementary and middle schools and 1 high school under the oversight of our superintendent. CEC members serve in an advisory role on education matters to the district superintendent, the chancellor of the Department of Education, and to state and city elected officials. We approve district school zoning lines submitted by the Department of Education. We evaluate our district superintendent. We review the district's education programs, and we support school leadership teams. We also submit recommendations for the School Construction Authority's annual capital plan. And as of recent amendments to the law, CECs advise in the selection of parent coordinators. We actively seek input and feedback from the public and encourage you to visit our website, cecd15.org. Take a look at our Facebook page and connect with us on Twitter, and write to us about any issues you may want to address or learn about. Each school has a CEC liaison, and all of our names and contact info are available on our website. I will just add the link to sign in the chat once more for anyone who has just joined the meeting. And I will turn it over to our parliamentarian, Joe, for the public comment protocol.
Good evening, everyone. I don't know if they can. Good evening, everyone. Tonight's meeting is taking place in person, but will include a public comment period. We will take both remote and in-person comments to gather additional feedback from our families and school community members. You may leave your camera on, or for your own privacy, if you prefer, you may use audio only during the comment period and throughout the meeting. When you comment, please respect the privacy of others. Please don't use names of children or staff. Guests who make inappropriate comments will be removed from the meeting. During the public comment period, those attending virtually may raise their hand virtually to comment or indicate in the chat that they would like to speak. Those called upon will be unmuted. If you are attending in person, you must sign the guest attendance sheet and indicate whether you would like to comment. Speakers will be called on one at a time and will be allowed 1 minute each for comment. We will hear as many speakers as time allows. It is possible that not every comment or question will be given time, so the best way to get your question answered is to email us at the link in the chat. CEC members will also be given a comment period. Members will be called upon and are permitted 2-minute comment or question. If members don't have a comment, they may cede their time to the chair. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right, thank you so much, Joe. And I begin tonight with some major news for our council. Our president, Camille Casaretti, has sat in the president's chair for the last 6 years. She just received the appointment of Public Advocate Jermaine Williams's office to the Community Education Council for High Schools, the CCHS. We congratulate Camille on this next journey that she will take in being an advocate for public school families in our city. Camille is not with us today, but at our next meeting on June 13th at PS 32, Camille will join us and we will be able to celebrate her many years of leadership in District 15 and congratulate her on her next steps. We invite you all to join us in person then, if you are able to do so. Because Camille has stepped down, we now have a vacancy for the position of president in our council. As vice president, today am acting vice president. At our next meeting, we will hold a vote for the person who will be president for one meeting, I guess. Yeah, okay. Next, we have very important information for all public and charter school families. Funds have been added to your PEBT cards. If you have lost your card, you can go to the link that I'm about to drop in the chat to get information on getting a new card. I think it's about $380. Am I correct? Does anybody know for certain the exact amount? I think it's somewhere in that range. Yeah. All right. Next, Summer Rising. We were disappointed to learn that 45,000 children across New York City did not receive seats in Summer Rising. That's a lot of children who have to make other plans this summer, and we're not expecting that to happen. Project-based learning. Last week, the district office hosted an event to showcase project-based learning in our district. We thank Superintendent Alvarez, Deputy Superintendent Nicole Ansalado, Neil Singh, who has joined the district office, Director of Student Services, Deidre Keys, and to all other members of the District 15 office for showcasing project-based learning. We put some photos up on our Twitter account, at CEC District 15, and I'm sure the superintendent will have more to share briefly. And we are very excited to learn more about how project-based learning will be supported moving forward in our district. Class size reduction plan. Class Size Matters is an organization that is looking for volunteers to testify at the Borough and Community Education Council hearings on the DOE's 5-year class size reduction plan, which is scheduled for the month of June. The final adopted plan is supposed to be revised based on public input and then submitted to the state in compliance with the new state class size laws. Antonia will drop in the chat an FAQ on the law and what is required of the law and the DOE draft plan. Class Size Matters will provide talking points to volunteers along with district and or borough specific data that they are free to draw upon for their comments. Hearings will be online via Zoom at 6 p.m. Registration for the meetings will open at 5 p.m. The registration and Zoom links for these hearings will be posted on the DOE page. And Antonia is also dropping that into the chat. And finally, we are here tonight at PS 94 in Sunset Park. We want to introduce and ask to say a few words. Principal Christina Gonzalez. And then we know that the PTA presidents are here also, and we would then like to invite you to say a few words.
Bernice. Get up.
What do I need to say?
Just talk.
Oh, hi, thank you for being here at PS 94. It's really an honor to host you today. I just want to share a couple of things. We are Summer Rising site. We will be welcoming families from 8 other schools in addition to ours. So please, if you need a seat, we're activating our wait list. Just contact your parent coordinators. We were just celebrating our first good day of health. And we did that in collaboration with Councilwoman Alexa Aviles and the Chizu Foundation. We did that last Sunday, and we provided comprehensive medical support to about 100 families, including asylum seekers that were sent to us by the councilwoman. We also want to announce that on June 13, we will be having one of our big food distribution events, and we will be providing food for the first 250 families that show up at 94 on that day. And on June 14, we're opening our doors to about 40 lawyers from the New York City Immigration Coalition to provide free consultation to families that are in support of legal advice. We will be providing the link to register through our platforms. And it is my honor to introduce the incoming PTA who hosted elections on May 8th. And Elaine and Bernice are going to say hello. And we have Luzanne, just in case you need translation. Thank you.
大家好，我是明年的 PDA 的主席，我希望能帮到你们家长，帮到这个社区，谢谢。
Good evening, everyone. My name is Elaine, and I will be the next year's PTA president for PS94. And my hope is to do my best to support our community and all our students and families.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Vicky, and I'll be running for vice president for the next year. I hope to bring everybody together in the community so that we'll be able to have better communications, and anything that you need, please come look for us. We will always be willing to share a hand. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you all who have joined us here in person tonight and who have joined us on Zoom. And with that, we pass it to Superintendent Alvarez for his report. Oh, yeah.
Hi, how are you? Good evening, Council. I just wanted to start off first by, it's almost the end of my first year here in District 15, and I wanted to give an award of appreciation. Unfortunately, Camille's not here, regrettably, but I'll make sure she's aware of it. An award appreciation presented to CEC 15, in appreciation for your many years of superior achievement and unmatched dedication to the D15 CEC. Thank you for everything that you do. And thank you for the partnership we had this year around school-wide enrichment project. We talked about PBL. We've been working on the diversity plan and figuring out what those changes are going to be. So I want to thank everyone for being a helping hand in helping move the district in a different direction around continuing to have students across the district interact with each other in many ways that we have, such as the Urban Debate League, some more to come for next year, but the project-based learning event that we just had, our parent symposium that's happening this weekend. So I want to thank you all. So I'm just going to pass it to the president since she's here. Acting president. Thank you. Oh, that's right. Should do that. All right. If we can move to the next slide. I'm just going to speak from my slides here and hope that you guys can see from there. And is it posted on? There you go. All right, cool. So really in honor of celebrating this month, Juneteenth, which is also a federal holiday now, and Eid, which we'll be celebrating, and then this month's Father's Day. Last month was Mother's Day. This month is Father's Day. So all those that are celebrating any of these particular days, we congratulate you and thank you for celebrating, and we'll continue to celebrate with you. Next slide. On behalf of District 15, we want to thank President Casaretti for her 8 years of service and advocacy, and congratulations on her new role again as the public advocate appointee to the Citywide Council on High Schools. So I'm sure we're going to hear a lot more of the work that she's going to be doing there in partnership with the high schools across all 5 boroughs. And so we salute her for that. Next slide. I really want to talk a little bit about the project-based learning and a bunch of thank yous. Thank you to CEC 15 for your leadership and push for the commitment to SEM and PBL, which will continue next year even further. I want to thank Jen Yonkers from Central Office and leading the monthly professional learning series for our leaders around SEM and PBL. I want to thank Neil and Paula for their organization and hard work, and the entire District 15 team for rolling up their sleeves and supporting this particular work. We need a bigger space next year, that's for sure. I want to thank the principals for embracing this change to their curricula, and their assistant principals for leading this work in their actual schools, the teachers for taking the risks and implementing this into their daily lessons and units. And I want to thank all the students for presenting their work and providing feedback and on our next steps, and as we continue to explore PBL and SEM as a district even further. And last but not least, I want to thank the families for supporting their children and believing in their work and coming out to see it and celebrating with them and helping them learn and learning from them as well. So it was a great success. And if you look at the next slide, here's just a bunch of different pictures across schools from our district on that particular day and event. We want to thank the volunteers who came out. We had students from high school, from our BHS, from Brooklyn Arts, and also other districts that came to support. So we want to thank all those that came out to make this first one a success, and many more to come after this. Next slide. If we're going to continue on this, I want to congratulate directly Anastasia Enriquez from PS32, who actually designed the PBL shirts, which is why we gave her a bag full of a lot of goodies that she was surprised to get. So we're excited about that. She was the logo designer for PBL. If you take a really close look, she was very intuitive to what PBL looks like and the work. So we were excited that we were able to celebrate her there. Next slide. Urban Debate League, the middle school tournament was on the 18th. We had the deputy borough president come and visit. We were at PS 958 in Sunset Park, where the tournament went on. It was amazing. Students were debating real world issues. There was listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Students competed at law firms and interact with attorneys as judges. There's a shout out to the middle school students and their coaches. Coaches put a lot of work into it. In our first place, we had middle school 447 this time. Second place was middle school 88. And third place was again middle school 447 second team. But every student noted at MS 88 got an award. I want to thank Principal Emily Shapiro, who actually helped lead the work for us and hosting at the school, but also to Ursula Kofer, who's on our district team, who helps organize this. As a result of this work, we're working with the deputy borough president, along with our 3 city council members, Hanif, Ressler, and Aviles, in order to be able to fund it next year, not just for middle schools, but for our 4th and 5th grade students to compete at our elementary schools as well. So we're looking forward to working with them in partnership so that we create a particular grant to pay the New York City Urban Debate League to continue to debate across our district. So we're excited about that. If we could turn to the next slide. Celebrating PS1, Principal Ramirez, who's actually here tonight, welcoming their spring family event, where parents and students and staff all planted and harvested plant radishes, pea shoots, and lettuce, and different other things that are being used in healthy cooking and eating. So shout out to Principal Ramirez and the work she's been doing there. Next slide. Also her chorus, Bamba Music Fellowship. The music teacher, Emma Halliburton, was the recipient of the Paul Simon Music Fellowship. Through this fellowship, she was partnered with the Bamba Plena artists and students in grades 1, 3, and 4, and PS1 chorus, which had an amazing performance for families and staff. If you want to take a look at the video, it's going to be on there. You're able to click on it when you get the PowerPoint, which Nicole Lancelotto is on virtual, that she'll be able to share. And by tomorrow or the next day, you should have this in translated version, as well as my commitment to ensuring our communities have it translated. Next slide. PS10 GSA's team having an art gallery for their families and teachers, as well as the GSA sold out over 200 friendship bracelets in less than 30 minutes. So the work that they've been doing to spread the work around what they've been doing. Last I told you, they were working with a teaching artist that was helping them do photography and some work. And they've just been doing some amazing work. So just wanted to highlight that. Next slide. PS 230 with Principal Maria de la Región, where they were celebrating the Bengali New Year celebration. There was an arts residency concert as well. Lupus awareness, which is what they were wearing purple. It's dear to my heart. Those of you who don't know, my mother passed away from lupus, so I'm a very big advocate for that and have been donating for years with my sister around this particular work. Open school morning, where families join the children for drop off. Everything and reading before enjoying some breakfast. So getting students to come to school, and we've been focusing on attendance a lot, and we've been happy with that. Next slide. We talked about this year, District 15 focusing on having the same universal screener. School leaders and input from the APs and things like that came across with having to do ELA and math across the entire district, catered to Acadians, and for 3 to 12 map growth for the consistency across the district, so that we can compare apples to apples instead of apples to oranges and bananas. So this will allow the district to be able to see where there's growth from school to school, and what work has been happening from school to school as it relates to those foundational skills that students may or may not be struggling with across the district. And so that'll help gauge us how we provide support to schools. This is not a you're in trouble. This is how do we provide support, and what are schools doing to support their teachers to help those students improve in their classes. So that's essentially how we're using that particular data. And we're glad to say that it's now across the district, unified. Next slide. The subzoning. So I know that Antonia from the CEC has asked about subzone 3. And so we wanted to make sure that we understood that there's a priority to applicants eligible for free or reduced lunch, price lunch based on family income, applicants living in temporary housing or public housing, and or English language learners for 30% of seats per rezoning plans to PS 58, 29, 261, 38, 32, 15, and 676. Enrollment posts the information on their website, which you can click on there if you wanted to look at those particular schools within subzone 3. And on My Schools directory, each school's card has language that speaks to their diversity priority, and families can also use filters on the search page to find schools that participate in these kinds of diversity initiatives. When families go to apply to these schools, they are asked some supplemental questions, which also informs and reminds them that this school gives priority to those groups as well. So we wanted to say that publicly here at a CEC meeting. We want it recorded. We also want to give the copies of the PowerPoints that shares this information. And we've even gone further, which is not detailed here, but I have my email to remind me that we're working behind the scenes with the enrollment office to do a better job at ensuring that this information gets out in a more productive way, Antonio. So I hope that answers a little bit of what you've been asking us to do, but it's said here publicly. In terms of the diversity plan, the next slide really talks about the updates around the objectives of the process. I'm not going to read every single one of them, but essentially it's supposed to help us inform our next level of decisions around the diversity plan. That might shift, that might not shift, that might change, that might not change. It's going to be based on this information. And so I want to go to the next slide, because the next slide is really important to this for the evaluation and reflection. So if we go to the next slide, small group listening sessions are scheduled or have been completed. It's been 1 of 3 student sessions, 2 of 2 elementary school guidance counselors and social worker sessions, 2 of 5 parent caregiver sessions, including sessions in Spanish, Mandarin, and Bengali, 2 of 2 middle school teacher sessions, 1 of 1 session with 2018 District 15 Diversity Plan Working Group members. The survey is there. You can click on the reflection survey. If you haven't completed it, please click on it. It is in the multiple languages, so you can read it in your native language or you can read it in English so that you give your input. I'm serious. The input is extremely important. It's helping me make decisions about future planning of schools, what we're doing with schools, even if the possibility of having to make changes to programming or what programs we're offering in particular schools. The data analysis ongoing. The survey deadline has been extended to June 15th. I wanted to make sure I announced it here and gave 2 more weeks for people to fill out the survey. So if you haven't, speak to whoever it is in your school community and have them also complete this. You're going to get the PowerPoint. So far to date, we have 957 responses. That's as of last night. And a synthesis of findings and report productions. The report's going to be released in the fall. And here's the reason. We only have 1 year of real testing data. And to me, that's not 100% testing data. You can't compare 2019 to 2022. But we can compare 2022 to 2023. And so the data for this year is not out yet and won't be released until after August. So we have made a conscious decision to, rather than release some information and not have all the information, to actually release this information come October, where we have all the information and it's presented. And then we can use that information to make future decisions going forward, if that makes sense. Next slide. Can you go back to the slide just for 1 second? I just want to point one thing out. So if you look on the top, it's really small, but these are the flyers. So when you click on the diversity plan reflection survey, you're going to get the survey and it's going to be in those languages. It's a QR code, or you can click on the link. Either way will work. Okay, next slide. New York City Reads Initiative. You all heard the initiative about changing curricula across the whole system. Right now, District 15 is in phase 2, as I've shared already. We're in the process of looking at 3 choices: HMH into reading, wit and wisdom, and expeditionary learning. All of them have positives and negatives, all of them. What I'll share with you right now is school leaders are in the process of looking at this curricula during our conferences and looking at schools that are already doing some of these programs that already exist to get some feedback so that they can make more informed decisions. We're not expected to start this until 2024-2025 school year. We will be making decisions as early as September, October, because we plan to purchase the materials in time for January so that schools have ample time to implement. One of the positives of Into Reading, which is the HMH curricula, a lot of the schools that do TC kind of almost aligns to some of the work that the TC has been doing. But more importantly, at the very least, they have this one in Spanish. So there wouldn't be any translations necessary for that. For Wit and Wisdom, it's in English. It's a really rigorous program that takes social justice issues and brings light to it, but it's only in English. And the last copyright from my perspective needs to be updated for me in order to be comfortable with that. And then expeditionary learning, which schools have already been using, but if you're going to do that, it takes a long time to integrate the social studies with the literacy component that expeditionary learning provides. And then that would require even more time for schools like PS 94 that have Chinese dual language and Spanish dual language. This is a decision that's being made with school leaders who are going to help think about what curricula they want to move in their schools, which are the people who make those decisions at the school level. But it's going to be more information that we're going to share on a month-to-month basis for CEC as well as the community to be aware of some of the components of this section. I think for now, I wanted just to share that these were the 3 curriculars. The next time I might share one more detailed information about one, and might have a school leader present the information to you from their perspective, so that you get an awareness of what's going on. Some of these are going to need to be supplemented for the foundational skills, specifically around phonemic awareness and phonics, to address that. And many of the schools are already using PAF. Many of the schools are using Foundations. Many of the schools are using Hegarty. And our district, we've been using Orton Gillingham. Many of our school leaders have been getting letters training, which talks about the science of reading, and I'll get into that shortly. Just wanted to give that information. Next slide. Early childhood education decisions. District 15 is one of those districts. 19 out of 24 of the schools were already using TSG, which is Teacher Strategies Gold, which is the creative curriculum. It aligns with the city's curriculum that was designed for early childhood, and it works very well for those parents who are concerned about losing Reggio Emilia. Reggio Emilia can continue side by side with creative curriculum, so it's not going to take away from what's already being done. For example, at 280, it will continue its work. But now all of our schools are going to be doing the same one. In addition to that, the universal screener, there were 2 universal screeners in the past for District 15. One was ASQ3. And the other one was work sampling, or TG. All the schools across our district, there were 19 out of 24 that were already using ASQ3. It's just the universal screener to identify early needs. The whole district is going to be doing that. To prepare those schools that haven't been doing this particular work, teachers have already started the professional development around this particular work. Every teacher is required to complete 16.5 hours of, some of it is self-paced training. And then some of it's professional development that's going to happen on June 8th across our district at the individual schools where they're going to be trained on how to use this. Many of them have already received the materials electronically so they can delve with it and look into it. What I like about this is that based on where children are, lesson plans are created to support individualized support for individual students in 3K and pre-K. So it's lesson plan proof in that the lesson plans are designed and created for teachers in alignment to where the student may or may not struggle in a particular developmental area. And so we're excited about this particular work. Again, it's comparing apples to apples instead of apples, oranges, and bananas. Next slide. So in elementary schools, it's the 5 areas, the 5 pillars: phonics, phonemic awareness, vocabulary, fluency, and comprehension. I just wanted you to see what we're going to be focusing on in grades K, 1, and 2 in our schools, and what we're going to be looking for as we're going into classrooms to identify how schools are supporting children in those foundational reading skills. Next slide. Summer Rising updates. So families were notified of Summer Rising placement on May 12th. As you heard from our current president, Ms. Randall, she shared that 42 to 45,000 students didn't get placement. That is correct. The city slated for 100,000 seats. Schools are in the process of mandating students for Summer Rising, academic, and extended day enrichment. So I want to also be clear that, and I hear this is not the answer and this is not the solution, but I do want people to understand also that the principals, as you heard Christina Gonzalez, who's running this school site, she may have even seats available for students who still want to come to summer school, but maybe not the extended part for the Summer Rising. And that's due part to the DYCD. They are licensed to do a certain number of students based on the particular program, where the school has a license to have more children. And that's part of the issue. That's a DYCD concern, not a school concern, because at 12:30 or 1 o'clock, whatever the time the school has decided to go till, that ends the day for the teachers, so they leave. The rest of it's left to the program. Because the program are not licensed pedagogues, all of them, there's a certain limited of number capacity that each program can house based on the licensure that they have with the city and the state. So that's part of the problem. After mandated students are entered into ACS, families that applied and did not receive a placement may be notified by the CBO as seats become available. That's why you heard Principal Gonzalez saying, share the name, because once a seat becomes available, and they do become available, some parents, when they register for the CBO, realize they don't want it anymore, or it's inconvenient, or they decided they're going to go on a trip, or have decided they're not even going to go to Summer Rising, or decided they're going to move. All this happens within a 2-month period. There are a lot of changes of minds that happen. So there'll be certainly seats available for other students to participate. I know that's not the answer, the best answer, but it's something that we're going to be able to do going forward. And I just wanted to be able to give some of that. If siblings receive 2 different placements, the guidance is for parents to notify the CBO and the principal in charge during intake. So if seats become available, the PIC and CBO can make their transfer. Some of it had to do with parents selecting multiple CBOs across 2 or 3 different sites. And so what happens is, for example, 94 had a few CBOs. If you selected each one, a student might get into one CBO and not into the other CBO, right? And so if you selected PS 94 as one site, and then you selected, for example, 130 as another site in my district, and then you clicked on all the CBOs, they place the students according to those CBOs as opposed to putting together. And so that's happened in some instances. So if that's the case, we ask that the parent reach out to the principal in charge of the summer school site. If you're not getting a response, you're more than welcome to reach out to my office, reach out to B Diaz, BDIAZ 14 at schools.nyc.gov, and she'll coordinate that conversation between the summer school site, you and your family. We've been working with a few of the ones that we've been getting. It's important to note, this was the system was done lottery based from the central office location and how students were assigned. We're now working on trying to make adjustments in coordination with the different principals that are running summer schools. And then the principals are talking to each other about the spaces that are available in their school. And they've been coordinating that work behind the scenes, just to give you that heads up. And next slide. And you can skip that one. I just want to talk about 2 very, very important dates for me, near and dear to me. This Thursday, we have our recognition ceremony for our school safety agents, our school crossing guards, our food service staff, and our facility staff. Those are what you know as the custodians and the cleaners of the building. It's important for me. School leaders were allowed to select different members of the community, so we're giving them a nice dinner. I know some of the electeds are going to be there giving their own city citations to the members. CEC is welcome to please attend if you can, or at least someone on the team. We're going to be giving recognition awards to these particular members of the community, recognizing that they're part of the school communities. We often talk about the teachers, the principal, but we never really talk about the unsung heroes, the crossing guards, to make sure that our kids are safe crossing. We know there's been issues at 94 a few times. The food services who make sure our kids have hot meals and food to eat. The cleaners of the building, making sure that our building is safe and clean, and our safety agents who do everything they can and they're the front line, usually know the parents better than most of the school staff do, right? Because they know everybody, they see everybody, and so they have that communication, and so we wanted to recognize them for that. Next slide is our first ever family event. We're hosting it in Sunset Park at 821 136 the Dewey campus. There's going to be several parent workshops, student performances, community-based organization share fair. So there's going to be a lot of people like NYU and other organizations that are going to be giving a lot of things to the community. And then after that, it's box lunch with a carnival. So there's going to be some bounties and a bunch of other things. We know that NYPD has shared their rock climbing thing. So that's going to be that for kids. All of it is free. There's no cost. The district is covering the cost to ensure that we are bringing the community together. Because that's been my goal. The consistency has been about collaboration. So we're going to bring more and more of the district together as opposed to separate. And you have that in all 4 languages here: Bangla, Mandarin, Spanish, and English. And I think that's it.
Thank you so much, Superintendent Alvarez. I'll pass it to Joe. We'll do the public comment first. Yes.
All right, I'm going to start with interpretation. Please let us know if there's anyone on the interpretation lines that has a question or comment. The interpreter could raise their hand if they do.
In the Spanish line, we don't have any questions at this moment.
Yeah, Mandarin, I don't have any further questions so far. Thank you.
Yeah, no question in Bangla as well.
And while we wait, I'll just acknowledge that Nakia Muhasa Brown and Alfred DeAngelis have both arrived.
Joe, can you share with parents again how to get interpretation services? It seems that some parents having some issue.
How to
get the interpretation service? They have down a certain number, right?
Yeah, the interpretation should have explained the beginning.
I mean, I can type in the chat, but I don't know if that means anything.
No, I'm talking about for the parent on site, how they can get interpretation services.
How they can get
Interpretation services. For
They
parent
now
on
it's
site.
not
they have
possible.
to
They can
call in.
They have to call in.
I think they have to call into the same line.
Yeah, they can call
They-
in.
Can you show the parents? Some of parents said they don't have. No.
They
Who said
can call in.
Who said that? You said some parents said that.
Yeah. Who?
The
One
parents
parent here,
here
yeah.
can't get on to the interpretation line, or they just want information about how to.
Yeah,
get
they want
in.
information on how to get interpretation. Perhaps you can make an announcement how they can get interpretation service for the parent here.
So, sure. I can't say, I perhaps can't say it in a language that they can understand it though.
I'll translate for you. I'll translate for you. Okay.
So the number to call in for interpretation is 347.
But that's in
Is-
Spanish. We need the Mandarin. one.
The
But
Mandarin,
isn't it the same number and then,
You choose.
is that
and
it?
then you choose?
Oh, is it? Okay.
I think it's just one number. I think
You want me
it's
to write
just-
the number to me so I can
Yeah.
just read it off?
Yeah, I'll write it down.
Yeah. Yeah, other parents may have the same issue. You know,
Hmm.
that That's just how it is.
Got it.
Yeah, even though they didn't ask, but they tend to have similar problem. So I just announced it.
There's a hand raised.
Okay. And I see a hand raised from Serena Chen.
We don't have a way to hear her on my computer.
Excuse me, sorry, the chatting room is not available. So we couldn't type our questions in the chatting room.
So I think you have to, if we want to hear it, you have to. Can you repeat yourself?
I'm sorry, can you repeat yourself?
I just said the chatting room is not available. So we couldn't type our questions in the chatting room.
Yeah, please.
So I think some parent have.
Can you hear now? Now you can hear, okay. What I was sharing was that Deputy Superintendent Lanzalato will put my email address in the chat. It's R.Alvarez4. She actually just put it in. But a lot of the calls get routed to my family support coordinator, who happens to be Brenda Diaz, B Diaz 14. She handles the calls at first because she can usually resolve 90% of the concerns or issues that are going on across the district, because that's what her title is there for, and that's how she supports my office. Anything that gets past her, she usually has conversations with me. And if there's a need be to schedule a meeting with me or my deputy or anybody else on my team, we can actually schedule at that point for some time to have conversation directly with me. And that's happened on a few occasions, just so that you're aware. I hope that answers your question.
Ask her to just ask her question, like, come on, we'll unmute her, ask her question, because she must have written it into another form. And I can't access that form.
Deandra, are you able to unmute and explain your question, please?
Hi, my question is, will the superintendent be taking away instructional support coaches from all early childhood programs in public schools?
Can she start over?
So sorry, Deandra, we missed the very first part of your question.
Oh, sorry about that. Will the superintendent be taking away instructional coach supports from all early childhood programs in district schools?
No, that's not what we're doing. And central office is the one that's assigning a number of instructional coaches to continue to provide support. I know that as we speak, they've been interviewing several. So we should be, if anything, getting more instructional support across schools. And rather than it being a once a month thing that has been happening in the past, it's my understanding that every other week they're supposed to be in your schools even more. So there's an expectation that more support is being provided and not less support.
Okay, so I just want to make sure I have you clear. You're expecting more instructional coaches to be in your public schools across District 15, not less.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have a question from Serena. When we move to middle school, we have to choose the zone school, or we can apply for the middle school in zone 20. Thank you.
So you're applying to the District 15 schools. If your application has schools in District 20, that would mean that you share a zone with District 20 middle schools, which would allow you to apply. But that's only if you qualify based on where you live. So some of you will have the opportunity to apply to District 15 and District 20 schools. Some of you will have the opportunity on the other end of the district to apply to District 13 and 15 schools. But by being an elementary school student in District 15, you have access to all of our middle schools across the district. And if you are in a certain zone within District 20 or a certain zone within District 13, you might have access to both zones.
Thank you. I'm going to move to in person here. We had a couple. Yes, thank you.
Would you like to come up to the mic so that the
My question is, this is different, totally different than going in the summer racing. The one 9-11 school, from PS 94. I just wonder who make a decision, how you make a decision like that.
Yeah, I did. I will answer your question, but you have to let me answer. So there's multiple reasons why that was done. First of all, it was a collaboration with school leaders. We had too many school sites open, and many of the sites didn't have enough teachers to be able to cover the classes or the site supervisors. It wasn't a safe situation to have schools without teachers and possibly having to double up kids or not having to be able to provide the services to individual students. So the decision to put schools together was done in collaboration with principals, with myself, and looking at the numbers across the district for each of the sites that were available before versus not. It doesn't take away from the number of CBOs that have been provided to the schools. So I know there's this notion that because there's less schools, that there's less spaces for summer rising. That's not what happened. There are the same number of seats that would have been available in more sites, would have been available now, because what would have happened was, instead of this site, for example, having 3 CBOs, it would have had 1. The other site would have had the other. So that had nothing to do with the seating. That had to do with the morning program of the summer school. Summer Rising program in the afternoon is run by the CBOs. They have a different way of what they can service during their time. In our time, from the 8:30 to 12:30 time, for example, that's DOE staff. We didn't have enough DOE staff in this district, across the district, to be able to provide the services safely. And so from my perspective, we had to merge and put more schools together. It still didn't take away from the Summer Rising program in the after school. So I know that there's this notion that we have taken seats away by putting more schools together. That's absolutely not the case. So if you look at last year's enrollment, in some schools, it may have had 1 CBO. Now there are 3 CBOs. So the same number of seats are still going to be available for the Summer Rising program. The difference is, in previous years, because we had COVID funding, the COVID funding was able to pay for more students to participate in Summer Rising. With the reduction and things like that, with the COVID funding for the stimulus to support after the pandemic, there's been less funding to be placed into Summer Rising. If you know, before the pandemic, summer school was only from 8:30 to 12:30, or from 8:30 to 1 o'clock. That was extended under Misha Ross Porter, chancellor at the time, because of the fact that we had the additional funding to put into partnering with the DYCD programs, which are the CBOs, in partnership with the schools. And that's been the difference now.
So Sarah, I hear that you saying only here's the 9 in D15, only here's 94 have enough staff DOE teachers to cover all 11 summer races.
That's not how that works. So let me answer that question, since that's coming.
As a parent perspective, I just heard CFL for running a CBO in our school. They say they see it totally different. And even though right now I join the CFL, the student after school, they don't have a spot for summer racing. But usually 4 more year, they always have a priority because when the kids are ready to enroll in CFL. So totally you do very, very extremely different thing than formal. In Madden, how you secure our in case of 94 secure those kind of days, you know.
So I'm going to pause you there, because what Center for Life shared with you was their perspective. I want you to understand that when it comes to the CBOs, Center for Family Life has the right to choose the students that are part of the program first. So them denying a student that was in the program last year and then sharing that with you as that they didn't have the seats available, that's not true. So that's something that I will speak with the director of Center for Family Life, because that's false information that's being provided to you unfairly. That's one. The second part is that you talked about the teachers at 94 covering because other schools don't. That's not what happens. In summer school, teachers apply for summer school. They could apply from this district, they could apply from other districts. There's this thing called retention rights. Teachers who have worked summer school in the past have the right to come back to work, but they also have rights to select which schools they go to first. That's a contractual thing, that's UFT. So that's the United Federation Teachers that creates a contract with the DOE that's binding, that allows teachers to go to teach where they have retention rights. So for example, once upon a time, I worked here at PS 94, but I had retention rights where I used to live, which was in East New York in District 19. So I would be able to teach in District 19 and not have to teach here because it was closer to my house and I had already worked over there. What we're saying is that when we have too many sites open, when a teacher is absent, there's no coverage for the teacher. What happens then? Are the students still getting the services in a short amount of time? It was an exercise decision to make sure that we had less sites, because then there would be more support for coverage. There would be allow for the other school buildings to be cleaned and to be able to be serviced. And that's the way we decided this particular decision. And I still stand on that decision.
CEC as an advocate for parents, for families. So you guys say, okay, for 11 school, you know that you guys all know it's streaming different than 4 more years. So you guys say, okay, 11 school in 1 school.
The CEC, yeah.
We're gonna have to like move.
But I'm going to
forward.
answer that. The CEC doesn't make that decision, and they didn't make that decision. So I don't want the CEC to be blamed for the decision that was made. They don't make that decision.
No, I mean, they know.
Yeah, but
Nobody knows, so you only buy your
No, please stop putting words in my mouth. I'm going to ask that. I understand that you're upset and you have every right to be upset. But please understand that this is a citywide issue. This is not specific to District 15. It's not specific to any district across the city. If you look, and I think that the president shared very clearly, 45,000 students didn't get seats. We don't even have 45,000 students in District 15. So my answer to that question is, this is not an issue in just District 15. This is a citywide issue. So this is not an issue that this superintendent brought to the table to cause a problem in District 15 in my first year of leadership here. This is a citywide issue. We had 145,000 applicants. If you read all the news that's been going on, 45,000 kids didn't get seats in this school, in the school next door, in District 20, in 31 in Staten Island, in Queens, in 28, in Manhattan, in the Bronx. Across the entire city, in every single district, students didn't get seats for Summer Rising. That's not an issue that's brought up by the superintendent. That's an issue when it comes to funding. There was only 100,000 seats slated. Remember, I'm going to go back to this. Prior to the pandemic, we didn't have Summer Rising. It was just summer school. Summer Rising was developed by Chancellor Misha Ross Porter, and she did that to try to reduce the learning loss that kids were having after the pandemic. That's why Summer Rising came about, to provide wraparound services with DYCD. There's a capacity issue, but there's also a funding issue. So there wasn't enough funding to put further programs. So to blame any one particular person is the wrong approach. It's a systemic issue that's across the entire city in every single superintendency. You can go to any district and you're going to find several parents that didn't get seats in Summer Rising this year.
So right now, I have a lot of question, concern, as to say the issue for 11 school in one school. So Summer Rising, later on, I hope in CEC discussion. I'm not bringing you.
Yeah.
I just wanted to know.
I agree.
A lot of parents wanted to
Yeah.
know who make a decision.
Yeah.
It's extremely different than before, right?
Mhm.
So CEC, consider it's 11 school in one school.
Mhm. Go ahead.
We really have to move forward.
We are having. So, the issue about the seats, all the CBOs that are coming to 94 preserve the numbers of seats. No one is cutting seats, okay? And in the issue about the program at 94, I welcome you to join me in my SLT meeting when I will bring the plan, because the plan is already done and there's space for everybody here, okay?
Thank you. May I ask one question?
No, we're going through.
Yeah, I'll start. Well, I don't have the
No.
rules. so
Okay,
I'll just
then I will
start
give
with you.
you, no, I want to go through the top of the rules.
Okay. Antonia.
Okay, I just have a quick comment. Is it correct that the Summer Rising was funded through the federal COVID relief funds?
Many of the funds were, yes. Obviously, some of the funds for the program are slated by DOE funding, which has always been for the summer school program. But a lot of the Summer Rising funding is slated from the COVID funding.
And it's correct that that's phasing out.
It's pretty much
it's
almost fully
expiring.
phased out, yes.
So is there have you heard anything coming down the pipeline about phasing out Summer Rising?
Well, I know that the city's mayor, as well as some other constituencies, are advocating from the federal government to provide more funding to continue to support the learning loss that we still have, that we still see, and support the needs of the particular communities, especially since we have a growing number of migrant families that have been coming into our city. I think we're now at about 60,000, of which we're covering. And so the mayor is trying to use a huge plea with the federal government to provide additional stimulus. I know that as of right now, we've been slated for $35 billion extra dollars as a whole city, but that covers multiple agencies up to and including housing and everything else to provide for those migrant families. We were expecting a lot more. We only got 35 for now out of that chunk of money.
So Joey, it's a bigger advocacy issue citywide to the federal government.
I'm sorry. Your time has ceded.
Okay, I did that. I apologize. I shouldn't have engaged. I
And the
apologize.
mayor's continuing.
Okay,
I'm
and
sorry, Tia, it is not your, actually, it is your turn, but it is Joe's turn to give it to you.
Okay, Tia.
Okay, I guess I have to stick to only one topic, so I guess I will choose the standardized testing. So I do know that teachers were particularly frustrated with Acadians. So you were talking about how this decision came about, in consultation with principals.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering if you could share, maybe, obviously you can't say who's, but like what percentage maybe of the leadership, were enthusiastic about these two tests.
So I will say that no one was enthusiastic about any particular universal screener, but what made the most sense is that Acadians really looks at deeper dive into the foundational skills. So currently the city has a mandate that all K-2 in ELA must use Acadians. So that's a mandate across the system. All boroughs, every district. So since we knew that, we decided to do K-2 for math for consistency purposes. And then we moved away from doing, some schools were doing 3 through 5, some schools were doing 3 and 4, some schools were doing certain grades with Acadians. That's why we removed the Acadians. Math growth seems to be a faster assessment that gets similar or same results. Schools have opted to use Acadians as an additional support if there are level 3 students who need real deep, intense support. They can unpack even further by going into more details on an individual assessment as necessary. Many of the schools, particularly our schools with larger students to assess, felt that the Acadians takes way too longer and it becomes difficult and takes a lot of instructional time. It's the reason why we opted just to keep it for K-2 because it's something that makes sense. The 3 through 12 map growth was so that we had consistency. Middle schools were already gonna do math growth, so it made sense to make the connection between 5th and 6th grade. And so school leaders, most school leaders, and I would say 62%, 62 or 63%, I can't remember the number, were more for option 2, which is where the options I showed. The other option that was selected was option 1, which option 1 would have had Acadians K-4, and then 5 to 12 map growth.
Okay,
And
so
that
but the
option had-
choices were all map and Acadians, not like other kinds of
Yes,
assessments.
option-
Oh, okay,
no,
they didn't choose.
There was one more.
Oh.
Option 3 had to mix iReady with map growth and Acadians.
Okay.
That just would have been the same thing that we're doing now, which is apples, oranges, and bananas. So the district team that they all voted, it ended up being 60%, I want to say 60%, 60 to 62% for option 2, which is what we're doing now, which is what I shared. Option 1 was about 30%, and it was about 10% who wanted the one that had iReady, just because they had already been doing it.
But there was no option with even less standardized tests.
Well, the universal screeners are a requirement by the city, so they all have to do it regardless.
Right, but
It
like
was
the
just-
amount.
It was just, everyone had to do ELA and math, K-12, every school. So what we did was we took the assessment that took the least amount of time, which is the math growth. Yeah, that's what we did. Well, that's what they decided.
Vincent? Good. Yeah, I just want to circle back on some of those.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Turning around. You mentioned that this year we were able to support 1,000, I mean, 100,000.
100,000.
100,000 students. That's city-wise.
Yes.
Can you share information on D15 and compare with?
I can get
last
you those
year?
numbers for June 13th. I can probably get you those numbers for June 13th. I didn't prepare to share that information, so I don't have that on the top of my head, and I'm not going to give you a random number.
Yeah.
But I can definitely get you a comparison to 2022 compared to this particular year.
Yeah.
And then what I'll see that they do is they could do a citywide comparison as well.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for.
Absolutely.
Because some parent, I want to have better,
It's a better
understanding.
clarity and understanding. Yeah,
like
absolutely.
when you compare like last year with this year, like how many seats
Yeah.
we lost,
Yeah.
city wise and district wise.
Yeah.
Perhaps our parents have better
Yeah.
understanding you know,
We'll,
everyone
we'll
could be on
speak to the
same page.
enrollment office to see if they'll
Yeah.
release that information to us. They should be able to, but they hadn't released that information when we prepared for today.
Yeah, it's not that we're losing a lot of funding, but in terms of number of seats, there's lack of clarity on what the number.
Yeah, I
looks
can
like.
definitely share that
Yeah.
for June 13th. That's 2 weeks, so I should have enough time to get that information. Nicole, if you can just share with enrollment that we would like to see that data, last year's comparison of summer rising students compared to this year's.
Cool,
Yep,
thank you.
absolutely. And applicants, please, make sure the applicants there.
Nana Poku. Oh, he stepped out. Alfred. Thank you, Alfred. Myself, I will say that I express solidarity to Joey's point. I think you're saying what a lot of us believe and feel. In that just because a bad decision is DOE wide doesn't mean we don't have local responsibility for not fixing it in our own district or expecting the greater DOE to fix it for all of our kids. So I think your point is well made. Yvonne?
Yes.
Any update that you might have in schools, or what's gonna happen with them in the summer?
In terms of the summer programs for them, I do know that temporary housing has some things that they're working on. Many of the temporary housing locations have community coordinators who have been working on additional things for those particular students. Please note that students who are in temporary housing did get a priority as it relates to getting seats in summer rising programs. That was one of the things that they did.
Thank you.
Can I, Rob, you can, from the list office, do you have any updates?
So we have continuously been supporting seekers in our district, providing immigration assistance and all sorts of other different resources. So as far as incoming, we're not aware of any. Usually, unfortunately, when we find out that people are coming, it's a day or two before they're coming, right? So this is our internal battle with the city, with the mayor's office. And sometimes a lot of this anger, like we can all understand, like I understand where Joey's coming from, but a lot of times this is misdirected. It comes from even above us. And we don't even get the courtesy of the heads up, right? There was this big issue and we all know about it. We found out when everyone else found out. So that is the struggle. That is what we all go through. And unfortunately, it's the reality at this moment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nancy?
We're just. Do you need your plug?
Well, it's my turn. Okay, so in terms of summarizing, I am livid that I don't have seats for my 2 children. I'm in the same boat as everybody else. And I am very frustrated with the situation. As Tia mentioned, vote for another mayor in a couple of years, or this mayor, if we are able to get this mayor to put more funding into education, I would be very, very happy if he were starting to do that. So maybe we can voice our support more and more for him to fund our schools, because the money keeps being taken away from our schools. One thing that I forgot to mention at the start is that the DESA screeners, which cost $18 million, have now been implemented for 2 years. And the 3rd year, it will now be cut. It was a lot of money that was invested into something that a lot of people had an issue with. And now it's not going to continue because it didn't work out. But that's $18 million. So talking about funding, that money could have gone elsewhere. I just wanted to mention one thing, Superintendent Alvarez, which is that according to the rezoning recommendations, NYCHA residents would also have.
Yeah.
Oh, you did
yeah.
mention NYCHA residents? Oh, okay. All right. Wonderful. I just wanted
But
to
it's
make
great to
sure.
mention it again to make sure they
Yes,
know.
Yes, I
Yeah.
just want to make sure that anybody who is a NYCHA resident knows that for those 6 elementary schools, you would also have priority to one of those schools if you wanted to. And with that, I'll pass it back to Joe.
Thank you. Vanessa. Oh, I guess you're right. Nakia.
Yeah, that's right. Great. So I'll let you kind of ramble off because I have some notes actually.
Sure.
Let's do it this way. I'm prepared. Okay, so a few things on my mind at the moment are the 100,000 seats, right? Was that the same number at the start of the inception?
I would say no, because in the start of the inception, it was everyone had the opportunity to come. So with that, everyone had the opportunity, many families weren't sending their kids anyway because of COVID and their concerns with COVID already in general. So that number wasn't the same number in year one. What the numbers were in year two, I honestly can't remember, but I will try to get some of that information on the June 13th meeting so that there's a little bit more clarity as to what the numbers look like from year to year and what the changes were. I can say that this was a record number of families that wanted summer rising compared to last year and the year before, and even when it first started. So this year, for whatever reason, I think that with parents having to go back to work and a lot of people having to work in the summer and having childcare for their children, I think it became more prevalent now than it has in previous years because now we are not in a pandemic anymore. And so I think that that's where the issue lies, but the funding for some of this, what was intended, is gone. So, but I will get that information for next month. I don't want to give a wrong number.
Bigger issue, I mean, it's a huge issue, obviously. I was wondering about this standing living seat. What are we going to do for them?
So what I had shared earlier was that schools can still take students for the summer program, which is the Monday through Thursday, 8:30 to the 12:30 time. There are still students who can go to that particular program. Where the issue lies is the summer rising extension, because that's a school, community-based organization that's actually running that. So schools have been doing that, and there are schools that are doing it. So for example, 172, for Mom to Understand, is assigned to this school for the purposes of the summer rising program. But the principal is already running her own program that she's funded for her kids to go because she's done that for years, and they go to her site. So she's going to be running her site for summer school during the day. There are several other schools that do that as well. So that's the morning program. Where the issues lying is where DYCB is funded for the aftercare program, which extends from 12:30 to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. And that's where the issue lies.
So what about the funding that we're trying to get, or the deal we were? I don't know, there's so many entities involved, right? It's a bigger issue too. Where are we, in terms of that? How can we get involved with, getting more recovery funding or economic support so that, summer rising is not available to, what we can do?
Yeah, I mean, I think parents have to advocate as best as possible to their different constituencies. Elected officials are always one starting point because they can make more noise to the city. I think city council can be part of that conversation because they also help manage the budget of the money for the mayor's approval of his budget. I also think that there are opportunities for thinking about how do we continue to provide some programs at particular schools. I know that there are some PAPTs, for example, that can raise a lot of money. Some can't, but that's another way that can be utilized, supplemental funding from PAPTs to raise the money for some schools. I know that that brings a disproportionality to some of the schools that might need it most. But if you look at what the city has already done, foster families, students in temporary housing, special needs students have had priority to summer rising already. So this might be beneficial for the families who are past that cusp, but still need the services and support. And so I think that's other ways that we can support this particularly. And then thinking about those seats available, but also reaching out to the schools. I can promise you that while seats don't look available, when come the first day of summer school, there's always seats that open up because families decide they're gonna go on vacation instead. Families decide, I applied for it just in case I got it, but we decided to leave. And I've seen this time and time again, year after year. I think the first year we did this, we were panicking that we weren't gonna have enough seats. And at the end of the day, we ended up finding several seats for students at different programs. It may not be the program they want at this particular school, but we'll be able to find the right program. At the very least, they have the opportunity for the Monday to Thursday time for the morning to be able to cover, to be able to go to summer school. Someone who would need summer school, or, yeah, pretty much.
All right, Superintendent Chu.
I'm gonna try to follow along. Can you just make an announcement of that availability thing, like through the?
Which bill?
Of the, for in terms of seats open or not, because a lot of families don't know that.
Yeah, we've told many of the parents, especially the ones that emailed us. Many have emailed me and we make sure that we connect them and in charge and place them on wait lists. Some of them have been reaching out to the CBOs directly and CBOs are doing that. But it was my understanding that CBOs also were the schools that they were working at, because most of them would be there, that the kids who are already in their programs would have first priority. So the comment that was made about not having first priority, even though you were part of a program throughout the year, that's inaccurate. That's just a CBO doing what a CBO would do to give you misinformation to make people upset. But if you are a part of CBO through the school year and you're going into the summer, you have first priority in that CBO because they already know you, you've already been a part of their program. So those students wouldn't have been denied first. I can tell you that for sure.
Thank you so much for, is it okay if we get our
Yes, I'll talk to you for Sunday.
Thank you.
No, I have one. I'm gonna bring it. I'm gonna give it. Just ignore the message. It said I'm the boss.
Is the council still taking any more questions?
Sounds of the universe that we shouldn't see. Try, next slide. So just for the folks who were gathering, looking up next. And as everyone paying a lot of attention to especially this time of year next slide. Just a quick look back at our 4 years. We learned recently that the state released updated ratings on schools, all 47 of our schools are now considered district. And we're constantly paying attention to attendance and contact. Super proud of our schools. If you look over on the right, the third column, students with IEP school research. As you guys probably know, 3 times a year, council releases data on how schools are serving students with IEP. And we are so proud of our schools. The city, I believe, is at 89%. And all report, and almost all of our schools are about 90%. Cyber art had a teacher leave. They replaced that teacher and at the next unfortunately attendance, our schools remain about 80%, but they're, again, this time of year may students have a harder time coming to school. We've invested in some extra teachers who are making home visits. Right now, for your district, we're focused on John J. Law and Cyber Art and Sunset Park, making sure the schools talk to the families and creating incentives. And really, types of things we try to help them understand what they are. And that's one conversation about the importance of the school. So as the community district this time of year is all about finishing up strong. I'm happy to hear that the district has taken that road because as will be across the high school as not safe standard now assessment measure of OCR. This time of year, the students are coming up with but our schools are using the competitions to try to understand what students are struggling with so they can modify the instruction. Our international baccalaureate schools and AP students already. I'm looking at less testing is better. For our high school students, they need to do that. And some of our schools have really. I'm sorry. Thank you so much. And then the work of the district is to support instruction. So we are continuing to work with the expert skills, the literacy practices. We're really excited to be launching. She is probably the woman who invented the construct of differentiation. And at this point in her career, she's really looking at what differentiation means for school instead of the classroom. So she's going to be working with our district in helping our leaders think about differentiation in a way that's just beyond the we are one of the districts. Rafael spoke about it earlier. It's really trying to create more coherence around curriculum. And Janice and our principals decided that we would call in for a math pilot with 40 of our 47 schools will be implemented in the national math. Which we love because it's problem-based and it's real-world applied. There's a digital component. It comes with translation. So we are working closely with the central math team set up for that. The teachers and leaders are in just like what Rafael said about how to roll out this year. Our schools are engaging with the now. They support right from the illustrative math all the way over the summer so that by the time fall comes, the teachers will have planned the first quarter of the year. So that once it starts, we'll, as they're implementing the first year, we'll be helping them plan. And then we continue to work with all of this question around the instruction also reflects to our students. We got a ton of here. We lift up master teachers. At this point, we only have 3 instructions. So at this point, the teachers have to develop this together, which we're super proud of. spoken about our student action town hall already, but I wanted to report back that the kids have really stuck with the connection that they made back in mid-March. And I believe 6 of our schools have been in some sort of upgrade. We're working with the division of schools. Water fountain, some schools are working with school food to provide the menu. There's a few schools that have hydroponic gardens, and we're working with school foods to upgrade what they're growing into their own meal. And then some of our schools are using this project. Then something else I talked about all day was our Aspen Challenge School. District 15 had Pablo Hill and Sunset Park. Next year we'll be doubling the size of the weekend. But of our 20 schools, each week traveling to Aspen. The last week of June, Aspen Festival. The 3 projects that won were around food insecurity, healthy relationships among teens. This group, District 14 schools, also won the Teacher Choice Award. This was a 12-hour day with 20 schools all presented and we challenged each other. And at the end of the day, the judges selected the 2 schools that they were the first group. And the schools were very good. We were very sure about that. Next slide. And then just the various groups. 2 weeks when I come back, I will update this digest. Thank you. Thank you so much. Before we have to go,
Yeah, I was asking, one of them is that sometimes now people are not aware that they are on it. So they might be alarm attack on the wall. What I was hoping that to send it. I'm asking so. Go alert they have a capability to do what is going on and I'm using when you know all right. Right, message for and use the line while after the presentation. I think what happened is that sometimes I call it without aware that so I don't know my we will go to the Zoom chat. If interpreters have any experience, have a comment or questions regarding high schools. Please raise your hand. Or anyone else, please type it in the chat or raise your hand. We have a few ways. Deandra, is that from earlier? No. Okay.
Yes, I'm still here. Are you asking me to state my question?
Yeah, please, if you would.
Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't sure. I'm just a bit confused because New York State just gave New York City Public Schools about $34 billion in funding. So I'm confused as to why there are not enough summer rising seats if there's funding for public schools. So I don't understand that. Can someone clarify that?
you would, you would need to
All right.
unmute that. Yep.
I think that right now, unfortunately, we're going to not return to this very important topic because we do have a lot of the agenda to get through. That is an issue that I would ask for you to email the superintendent's office directly, also email the chancellor's office, also email the mayor. The more people emailing and asking why we don't have enough summer rising seats for all of our students, the better. And it's really important to put pressure on elected officials to make sure that they are doing things on behalf of parents and families and public school students. So we right now don't have an answer to that question. I, in fact, have the same question. And so the more pressure we're putting on elected officials, the better. Does anybody have any questions
This
for
is my last question.
the
I'm
Brooklyn
sorry.
North
It's something you
superintendent?
just said. Is CEC going to be putting the pressure on the councilman, the mayor, and the chancellor also? Is CEC doing that work also?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Oh, I'm sorry. It was something you just said that kind of rang true for me. But I also wanted to know that I don't want to be the only parent voicing this, but I wanted to know if CEC, who are also elected by us, are you guys also doing this kind of work too, where you're reaching out to the mayor, the superintendent, the chancellor? Are you guys also doing this work too?
We are constantly sending emails to many different entities, people in positions of power to say what needs to be done on behalf of our families. So absolutely, the fact that there are 45,000 there are 45,000 students that did not get summer rising seats is, I'm very happy that students with the most needs receives a priority, but 45,000 is quite a huge number. So absolutely, we ourselves are also putting pressure on everybody about this and other issues.
Okay.
And I'll pass
thank
it back
you.
to Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands raised, anything in the chat. No, Joey?
I just have a quick question about, because I'm a new high school mom, I just wonder, is region, is it every 9 to 12 grade must we take a region, is every year take a region, every 9 to 12? Or if option take a region is when you go, like, as a senior, is you must pass a region and you have to diploma?
What school does your child attend?
Yeah.
What school does your child attend? What school? Oh, Millennium? So you're a ninth grade parent? Yes. Congratulations. How exciting. So there are regions that your child has to pass in order to earn a diploma, but what year, which subject they take, some depends on the school, some depends on what your child already came in with. But your guidance counselor you should request a meeting with your counselor, and they can walk you through and tell you what credits does your child already have and what they need to do to graduate.
So region is so if high school diploma you have a region must be harder.
That's correct.
I'm going to move to CEC members. Antonia?
I don't have a comment about the high school report. Thank you for giving it. It is wonderful to hear what's going on, as usual. I would just add to this hot topic on summer rising that I'm going to work with any of the council members who would like to work with me on a letter and petition to the mayor expressing that parents demand seats in summer rising. So we will cobble that together and hopefully we can put it out through the channels and get as many signatures on it. And that will give voice to people's frustrations.
Yeah. Tia?
Thank you for your presentation. I just wanted to hear a little bit more about this illustrative math. Is this like a software?
No.
You said there was a digital component.
There is.
Yeah.
So it's an Algebra 1 curriculum.
Mhm.
So it has the traditional workbooks, but there is a digital component so students can access different ways to show their learning. If the council is interested, illustrative math is all over the city right now, and I'm sure they would love to come and, because I think they're also looking at illustrative math for the accelerated 8th grade, because a lot of our 8th graders are taking the Algebra 1 region.
And sort of the innovation is the differentiation that, more differentiation is possible with this curriculum?
Yes, and
That's
also
great.
the curriculum's designed to be a problem-solving curriculum, so most lessons start with an open-ended question. Like you might get a picture of a Calder mobile and be asked to notice something about it. And that will magically turn into a conversation about linear functions and balancing equations.
Magic. Thank you.
Vincent? Yeah, I just want to piggyback Zoe's question for some clarification. So what I'm hearing is that region is still, I know back then I had to pass region to graduate from high school. My question is, the region is still a requirement for every student to get a diploma? Is that still the case?
Yes, in New York State. So there's one set of schools, the consortium schools, that where those children, I think, only take the ELA regions because, and I know Raphael's doing a lot of work with project-based learning. So the consortium schools, which Brooklyn Collaborative, there's one in District 15. They share a building with Brooklyn Youth School. maybe.
It's Brooklyn Collaborative.
So for consortium schools, students will do projects. So for example, instead of taking a science region, I might do a year-long research project and then present it in front of a panel to demonstrate that I have mastered what I would have learned in an earth science textbook. But other than that group of schools, New York State requires, and I probably shouldn't try to guess this, but ELA, math, global history, and then an advanced math and something else. But I'm going to send somebody, maybe I'll send Nancy the link. There's on the DOE website, there's a very clear roadmap on what students need to graduate. But I'm going to check on Millennium because there should have been a meeting for high schooler, for new parents to learn about what is required to get to graduation. So I'm going to follow up with Brooklyn Millennium if they didn't do that.
Thank you.
Because it's complicated, right? There's credits and there's regions, and especially with the pandemic, there was this thing called the waiver. So it's more complicated than ever. But New York State is pretty clear. I have personal opinions about it, but not for the record.
Nana?
Yeah, just to follow up on the topic. Actually, my son is in 9th grade, and I went through a lot of complications. Like a couple of weeks ago, I was confused myself in terms of the regions what he had to take, because last year he took ELA, history, and algebra 1, and
as an 8th grader.
As an 8th grader, and he passed. And they said that my son told me that he didn't have to take it anymore this year. But when I went to the school and I spoke, so what happened is for algebra 1, that is the only one that you require to graduate high school. However, if you take algebra 2, you're going to put it in the advanced class. It's not required, but it allows you to get to the advanced class. So there's certain basic ones that are required, there's certain ones. So the algebra is the only one that I know of. After algebra is the only one. Living environment and other ones, once you pass it, you don't have to take it again. But for algebra, you need 1 to graduate and 2 just to put you in the advanced class. So that's what I found out, based on my research and talking to the counselor. But yes, talk to your school counselor, they're going to let you know exactly, especially when they took it last year and they passed, they're going to give you credit for this year. And then on top of it, you can either take the advanced or you can just leave it as is.
And some students choose to retest because passing is a 65.
Exactly.
And
So
we
yes.
always offer students the chance to take it should they wish to achieve a higher grade.
Yeah, that's what they told me, that you want to get between a 70, more than 75. You know, so if all this is 65, if you don't get more than 75, you're encouraged to take it again. What's the thing? That's right.
This was doing a great job.
VHS, yeah.
Alfred? Thank you. And to my part, I don't want to labor the point to go back to the summarizing. I know this isn't a high school issue.
No, go for it.
But I do want to really emphasize that CEC is made up of parents. We all have jobs. This isn't our job like a council member would be. I wish it was. I wouldn't be able to do it, but I wish it was, because it would mean that we had more power and authority to represent parents. We would be listened to more. A lot of times we do things like write resolutions. And if a resolution is your method of influencing a mayor who, for instance, doesn't really care what we think, or honestly what a lot of parents think, particularly the most marginalized ones, then I would say that this is a body that ends up insulating people with power from parents. You know, it has a negative effect that we exist and we act as a way to block superintendents or mayors from accountability. So it's a double-edged sword. My recommendation is to come to us, and we will do that fight as best we can, but also please go to your council members. That is New Yorkers' best route to direct democracy, is your council members, and they will answer their calls, they will answer their emails, and they will, if they hear it enough, go to the mayor, and they do have teeth. Yvonne? Nancy?
Thank you so much for being here, for a lovely presentation. I don't have questions this time, but always very grateful for you being here.
Nakia?
Yes. Hi. Oh, do I need to come over again? Yeah. Well, I just wanted to ask about the students, because you mentioned chronic absenteeism, and so part of it, of course, is, kids don't want to be there. It's like, well, why? Of course, the pandemic is huge, plays a huge role in that. And, so the motivation isn't there. But that also plays a role in, for instance, seniors, graduating, who think they're graduating, maybe not graduating. The idea of leaving school again after coming back from the pandemic. I was talking to a friend who had a 16-year-old at the start. And so those, so, we're not seeing the high schoolers and what they go through. But what's coming up right now is, mental health concerns, questions about supports that high schoolers, especially seniors, have currently to help them get to that next stage. Because again, coming from the pandemic, coming from this place of isolation, and then going into an environment of higher education, it's already a daunting thought, I think, for most children, even though the high school is open for kids. So I wondered, what type of supports you have in the schools and high schools for the kids.
Yeah, so I would say the crux of the support are amazing guidance counselors. Most of our high schools have several. They aim to have one on a grade, because the needs of a 9th grader is very different than the needs of an 11th grader. As a district, we pull our guidance counselors together. We try to do it once a month. We switch between virtual and in person, and we give them the space to learn together. This year, we've been doing a lot of work around mindfulness, because, what do they say on the airplanes? Put your own oxygen mask on first. So we've been giving a lot of love and care to the people that then we count on to care for our children. On the forward-looking side, we've been working with Goddard Options Institute. They're an amazing organization, and they actually love working with parents. that really like kind of demystifies the college process. So this year, we actually had our parent coordinators participate with the guidance counselors. Because adults like kids learn better together. So actually today was our third one, and Options created this curriculum that then the counselors and the PCs could then turnkey back at their schools. And that's been a huge victory in our district. I mean, the way our adults are what they're willing to do to support our families. Last week, we actually had our parent coordinator celebration because 7 of our 47 PCs started when the job was created 20 years ago. And we were able to celebrate them with personal citations from the mayor's office. So in that way, we're trying to, Janice always says, like, the pedagogy of critical love, it's not just for kids, it's for the adults as well. So recognizing, I don't think any of us can even imagine what a school counselor goes through any given day. So again, aligned with the pedagogy of critical love, we practice empathy and we create space, and we pray a lot. Janice has a high schooler at home, and whenever we think about the giant systems problem, it's, well, what works for my kid? Because if it's not good enough for my kid, it's not good enough for the 26,999 other kids in our districts.
Thank you so much.
I try.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
I love district.
Oh, thank you. Okay, and now we will move to our resolution, the draft proposal, the proposed CEC 15 bylaws amendments. And I'll pass it to Antonia.
All right, so there's some bylaws floating around the table, and basically you just have to change the number that is the quorum from 6 to 7 as per changes to the law. And you can see there are changes on page 4. Quorum after in the new term, which begins July 1st, the quorum will be 7. And so we changed 6 to 7 on page 4 and page 10 and page 12. There will be 12 voting members, not 11 voting members. And you can see it's by vote of 7 council members. And then the same change on page 13 and page 16. We changed 6 to 7. So those are the changes. This would these changes to these bylaws would go into effect for the new council starting July 1st, not for this current meeting or the next meeting, because the law goes into effect for the next term. So,
for the sake of time, please raise your hand, CPC members, if you have any questions or comments.
Can I make a motion to vote on this resolution?
yes, sure.
I second.
Okay. Motion to vote. Hold on, let me just get my notes together. Second. Tia. All right, I will read the roll. Councilmember Antonia Ferraro, I vote yes to approve these changes. Tia, how do you vote?
Yes.
Vincent Liu? Okay, Nana Poku Ajakum?
He stepped out.
Oh, he stepped out, okay. Should we go get him, or? Oh,
We need him for
whoopsie.
quorum.
We
No, we
don't need him for quorum. Okay, Alfred DeAngelis? Okay. Joseph Alexander? Yvonne Bonda? Nancy Randall?
Approved.
Vanessa Gonzalez, she's not here, and Nakia Muhasa Brown.
Approved.
Okay, that change has been made. Thank you so much.
Our next resolution is on physical fitness and wellness. And Antonia, would you like to read the resolution?
Sure,
All right,
I'll
thank
share,
you.
I'll share the screen since I've got it open here. All right. Okay, so Camille brought this resolution to us on 2 different occasions. We had conversations about it. She took everybody's sort of comments and made changes to it. I'll read it as it is. Resolution on physical health and wellness in schools. Whereas every 3 years, the Department of Education is mandated to review its school wellness policy, where a review committee is formed of the citywide public school community members. Whereas members of the Citywide Wellness Advisory Council include CEC members, CPAC members, and families who believe our children have the right to play and be loud and to express their feelings. Stretch while in the classroom as often as they need to. Recess time should be a time to relax and play or to run around. Children require time to socialize. Outdoor recess time should be encouraged for fresh air. Safe, non-smoking, non-drug, and non-dangerous space to be children. To drink water as often as they need to, and to be encouraged to be physically active in and out of school. To play with children without separation by programs. To have and seek support when they need to without being judged or punished. Whereas students are often, no, this is not written correctly. Whereas students often miss recess to be provided services for special education such as SETs or OT/PT or services for ESL. Whereas there is no way for DOE to ensure that schools are not withholding recess time in order to schedule mandated services. Whereas time for lunch and recess is too short and should be extended, students, especially our youngest, are rushed to eat and often have trouble unpacking food or opening beverages. Whereas all schools should have dedicated gyms and playgrounds, not multi-purpose cafeteria, gym, auditorium. Whereas everyone needs a break at some point during the day, and by acknowledging that in a collective way, with whole class movement breaks and/or mental mindfulness breaks, we are helping every child and simultaneously decreasing the stigma placed upon the students who have breaks written on an IEP or 504. Whereas some schools, okay, that should be schools, employ the following programs that are effective in promoting a love of movement, keep the blood circulating and the mind working, Go Noodle, move to improve, 7th inning stretch, brain power wellness, Monday Mile, Zumba, and yoga. Whereas after-school programs are full with long wait lists and should be expanded. Before or after-school programs can be productive, engaging, and safe, as well as cater to children's strengths and interests. Champs, YMCA swimming classes during the day, walking school bus where children meet each other along the path to school. Whereas citywide events bring people together, and a day dedicated to mental wellness would allow all New York City students, families, and staff the ability to exercise and learn about mental health and unity as a city. Okay, therefore be it resolved that in the school year 2023-24, the Department of Education prioritize the importance for physical exercise as it relates to student health and wellness by adequately funding wellness programs in all schools to ensure that every child has access to high-quality fun movement programs that promote lifelong understanding and positive attitudes toward physical fitness. Be it resolved that all teachers and staff will be provided with professional development on the value and need for movement in child development. Be it resolved that superintendents and principals seek to incorporate best practices like the following into each child's daily schedule. Physical activity that includes some form of stretching, 3 to 5 minute mental breaks every 60 minutes or so, extended lunch period to aid in digestion, extended recess period to release energy or socialize, outdoor non-instructional breaks in addition to gym class. Be it resolved that by the school year 2025-26, the DOE Office of Space Planning will create dedicated fitness areas in schools that currently have combined gymnatoriums. Be it resolved that every elementary school be provided with a sensory gym, which will be available to the entire school community. Be it resolved that additional funding be allocated through the New York City's budget to provide after school for every wait-listed child that requires a seat. Be it further resolved that the City of New York will shorten Department of Youth and Community Development application timeline required to expand CBO funding for additional seats, and that this process be made more transparent. And be it further resolved that the Department of Education schedule an annual physical fitness and mental health summit, a day dedicated to wellness, where all students, staff, and members of the school communities can participate in unity as an entire city. All right, I'll turn it over to the parliamentarian for public comment.
Please raise your hand online or in the auditorium if anyone has a comment or question about this resolution. Okay, I will move to the CEC members. What's that? Yeah, I'll just say I did. Please raise your hand, CEC, for the sake of time, if you have a comment or question.
Oh, yeah, I do have one.
Vincent?
I believe one of the concerns we had last time was for the quick time mentioned in the resolutions, where was what are we sacrificing for those extra quick times? That was one of the main concerns. So I'm not sure if this update addressed it.
Yeah, I can I address it? Okay, so she had changed. Oh, did you mute it? Well, no, I can. No, I'm still alive. Okay. She on number 3, the number 3 resolved. she made it sort of more open-ended, where she said, be it resolved that the superintendent and principals seek to incorporate best practices like the following. So she's giving them, I don't remember, but it was like, it was more like, you must do all of this.
Okay.
And now it's like, seek to incorporate these
Are we
things
currently
where
doing
you.
this kind of thing, like mandating certain number of, are we doing this currently?
I think you have to give a certain amount, like, I think, yeah, I think you have a certain amount of minutes mandated for physical activity and for lunch. I think that's all like sort of.
But it's not every 60 minutes as in the resolution.
No.
If they are currently doing it, there's no need to ask.
No, I don't think they're not currently doing what she is asking them to do, but there is some sort of formula for how much physical activity a student is, like, yeah, I mean, there's.
Water scope rather than 30 minutes time chunk.
Yeah, so she's being more, she's saying these are some suggestions.
I think for myself, if I could speak, like, this is one of those rare resolutions I wouldn't vote for. From Camille, just because the language is so soft and unspecific. And that $18 million, we asked as a community for more social emotional support, and our district's solution was to pay $18 million to a private company to get data that nobody cared about. Like, good job, guys. That's fascinating that that's where your brains went. So, like, I think it's asking for a lot of things that people with bad decision-making histories would just be like, okay.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
I have a question about number 4. If there are buildings in our district that just physically can't house a gym and an auditorium and a lunch room, what do you, if this resolution goes through, what do you do with a building that's 120 years old?
It's a great
that we've converted into a school now that just doesn't have the space.
It doesn't have to be in that
It's a
school.
good
though.
idea,
Yeah.
it's just physically impossible. I don't know how you can't add, sometimes you just can't add to a building.
Yeah, like PS 94 has a combined 2 room into 1 gym.
Yeah.
So it's not really dedicated. So it's very case by cases, different school has different situation.
It's tough. Yes. Oh.
It sounds to me like this resolution is not yet ready for vote, and therefore I motion to table this.
I second.
Yep.
Okay, all right.
Can I just, oh, you're right, you tabled it.
No,
Never mind.
well,
I just
I
want to
mean-
say that, like, the CEC recommending to the city that they require, for example, regular movement breaks in the classroom, I think is worthwhile. And things like that are in the resolution, it's research-based, and like, they do it in Europe, like, let's get with the program. Okay. Oh, I see, if it were footnoted or whatever.
Okay.
We will move to general public comment. Anyone online? We still have some people in the auditorium too, so please raise your hand virtually or in person. And sorry, reading comments.
Oh, I should show you on
Yeah,
here,
I
I'm
can-
sorry. Thank you for doing this on our behalf. Would you please be able to send a letter to families so that parents can sign before? Oh, that's earlier.
Oh.
Okay, that's the last one.
Okay, and I think that's it.
The CEC will now move into executive session.
Okay, we have to actually vote to move into executive session.
Somebody like to motion first to
Okay,
move
all
into
right.
executive session?
I will.
Want to talk about all business?
Oh,
Yeah, of
yeah.
course. I forgot about old business and new business. Yes. Is there old business?
Yes, do we want to discuss, we discussed this before, do we want to come and discuss what needs to be done? For that, I feel like, it's just more time something that, could have spent elsewhere. You know, it's only 2 years, so I don't know if it's still worth it, because we don't have the information how much we have left in our budget. And, I feel like,
Right, so,
I think we need to bring the treasurer into
Oh,
this.
yeah.
She needs to get in the loop here
Yeah,
about
'cause I
what's
can't
going on.
understand.
right, so then, the goal would be for Nakia, you and Shanice to inform us how much is left in the budget for reimbursements.
Okay, I can tell you that right now.
Oh, okay.
Because what happened was, there was a single reimbursement request, our council approved last year, but somehow they didn't process it.
Oh, it's not up to date.
It's not up to date.
Then if it's not up to date, would it be, when might it, like this, later this week, maybe? Okay, so we'll need to wait until tomorrow.
Yeah, that's fine,
Okay,
you can
all
decide
right.
whether or not, you know.
Okay, great.
If
I
not,
can
that's fine. I'll just
also-
fight for it.
Okay.
Can I just add, I can also, when I get the updated information from Shanice and update the spreadsheet, I will send an email, which I think you all have access to anyway, as far as the spreadsheet, so you can see it.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Thank
Okay.
you, thank you.
Okay.
Does anybody have any new business? Would anybody like to motion for us to move into executive session to discuss the superintendent evaluation?
Okay.
Yes, Vincent made the
Vincent
motion.
made the
Who will second it?
motion. I'll second it.
I'll second it.
I guess we have to do a roll call vote to, right? Okay, Antonio Farrar, yes, go into executive session. Tia Shellsteed?
Yes.
Vincent Liu?
Yes.
Is Nana back?
Yes.
Nana, do you approve of, okay. Alfred DeAngelis, Joseph Alexander, Yvonne Banda, Nancy Randall,
Yes.
Vanessa's not here, and Nakia Muhasa Brown.
Approved?
Okay, so
Okay.
we are going to move into the cafeteria.
I mean,
We can't ask them, they are, they can
we can
stay.
inform them that
Yeah,
there's
you
no
can
meeting.
inform them that,
To our guests here tonight, excuse me, to our guests here tonight, we are now moving into executive session. So our meeting is now coming to a close for audience members.
sort of,
So-
well, not exactly. We come back.
You can stay.
We come back out of executive session and announce whatever it is that we've decided to do. So the public can stay and listen to what we say when we come out of executive session.
Okay. So we will move.
So
into-
we
There's
will
a room
have to,
upstairs.
we're going into the cafeteria.
Okay.
We're gonna go
All
into
right,
the cafeteria.
everyone, let's move into the.
Oh, unless they leave.
For the high school? In general.
I think we have to move anyway because we have to keep that camera rolling. We have to move anyway because that camera's rolling. So, and we have to keep it rolling. So we move into another room. And we will be right back. I don't know when we'll be back, but before they kick us out of this building.
Yeah.
Shanice, you can, or you can just stay. I don't think there's really anything for you to do. Oh, what would you like to do? You want to stay? All right, I'm gonna have to
to take my computer, and that means I have to take this out. All right.
Okay, they'll be right back.
All right. We are. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yes? Okay, great. We are back and we've come out of executive session. And so we will now vote on we will now vote first on the superintendent evaluation, including the comments of former President Camille Casaretti. I would like to make a motion to include the comments of former President Camille Casaretti.
Hold on a second. Nakia, you seconded it?
Yes.
Okay. Antonio Farrar, I vote yes. Tia Shellsteed.
Yes.
Vincent Liu,
I vote yes.
Nana,
Yes.
Alfred,
Yes.
Joseph, Yvonne, Nancy.
Yes.
Nakia.
Approve.
Okay.
Wonderful. The motion passes. Camille's comments will be included in the superintendent evaluation. And now we will vote to share the superintendent evaluation. Can I get a motion?
I will make a motion. Nakia, okay. Antonio Ferraro, I vote yes. Tia Shellsteed,
Yes.
Vincent Liu,
Yes.
Nana Poku Ajakun,
Yes.
Alfred De Angelis,
Yes.
Joseph Alexander, Yvonne Bonda, Nancy Randall.
Yes.
And Nakia Muhasa Brown.
Okay.
All right.
So we will share the superintendent evaluation with the superintendent, with the Office of the Chancellor, with, will the public have access?
No.
The public will not have access. But the different DOE entities that need to have this information will certainly have this information. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yes.
You and I will, or you will have to set up a meeting with the Superintendent Alvarez to share all this with him.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us tonight. And at 9:03 p.m., I am adjourning this meeting. Please join us on June 13th at PS 32 in Carroll Gardens, Gowanus. Good night.
Good night, everybody.